1, 2, 3, let's go!
Hi! Music. Yeah, guys, we're doing this academically this year, okay? Good morning. It's actually not morning, it's literally 3 p.m. You wouldn't know that because it's fucking dark outside. But anyway, hiya. Music. Guys, we're talking music today. You know the drill, right? I've done this for God knows how many years at this point. Every year, I like to end off, before I go on like a little week break at the beginning of January, I like to do a little roundup of the year, should we say. Okay, in today's video, obviously we're on the second channel, we're going to be doing albums. I'll be talking about my top 10 albums of the year, right? I've done this for probably 4 years at this point, I'd imagine. I'm very excited about this one. And tomorrow on the main channel, I will be ranking everything I've watched this year. So make sure you look out for that tomorrow. But for today, we're talking music, okay? And I actually have written them down in a book. I've got 10, technically 11 in the main list, but we'll get there, okay? Then I do have 2 honorable mentions. And what I'm going to do for every album is I'm going to give you my top 3, or if not top 3, because sometimes it's a bit hard to come up with like my favorite 3, the 3 that I feel like encapsulate the album as a whole the best. Okay? In at number 10, we're going to start with Dopamine by Normani. Now, I love this album. Okay, plot twist, every single thing that's on this list, I do love. Like, these are like the cream of the crop, to be honest. There's not a bad album on this list. Dopamine, great album. The factor that really brings this one down for me isn't even the music. It's more the fact that, like, we couldn't really sink our teeth into the era at all. If you don't know much about Normani, I'll quickly fill you in. She obviously began X Factor, then she was in Fifth Harmony for a while, then obviously they all broke up, they're now doing solo bits, okay? This is supposed to be her first initial album ever. And plot twist, her label are shit. I'm not sure who she's with, but the label are shitty. They're really sleeping on her, which is pissing me off because she's absolutely incredible. We've not even had one music video for any of these songs off this album. We've literally got the songs and that is it. She released a trailer.
Hello, Hotline 159.
To the visuals for the album. Oh, and they never dropped the visuals. So we got the trailer, we got the album, and that's it. No promotion, no nothing. I think Normani's maybe posted about it a handful of times. It's really been lackluster in terms of like giving this piece of work, in my opinion, what it deserved, because I do think the album's really good. It's definitely cohesive, and I will say my top 3 as of right now are All Yours, Lights On, both very, very horny. I love horny music. It's a thing. And also Tantrums. Tantrums, I'm pretty sure, is featuring James Blake or someone, I think. It's a different one. It's very unique. Like, in terms of the album as a whole, that one's quite unique. Let me just bring the camera a bit further down. It's looking a bit high. That's my number 10 pick. Moving on, number 9. Now, I do think this is going to be a shock to some of you, but I do have my reasoning. Okay, so in at number 9, we do have Brat.
Well, what was the reason?
I had a reason.
What was the reason? What was the reason?
Now, if I was doing this list maybe at the height of summer, Brat probably would have been higher on this list. And in actual fact, I'm pretty sure I did put it originally at 7. I obviously like this album. I enjoy the music. I think it's a very fun album. The thing that draws this one back for me personally is, one, it's not my typical usual music that I gravitate towards on a regular basis. Generally, and you'll see this reflected within my list, generally my music taste is a little bit more storytelling heavy, a little bit more chill, not so much like bangers. Or like, if it is bangers, it's more of like a pop banger rather than like a electronic banger. And obviously this album is very electronic, dance, rave-esque, that kind of vibe. That's the main reason. This is definitely going to be an album that I'll play more in summer. For me, it's a summer album. It's not an all-year-round album. And I also do think I really appreciate the theming. As much as we had the package lacking for Dopamine, for example, right? So Dopamine, we had no package, okay? I feel like I almost prefer the vibe and the energy and the whole package of Brat to the music. Like, I think for me, there's some bangers on the album, which in my opinion, my top 3/4 are 360, Sympathy is a Knife, Mean Girls, and Spring Breakers, because I couldn't choose between Mean Girls and Spring Breakers. Obviously, I love the guest remix with Billy. I love Girl So Confusing with Lord, but obviously they were on like a separate remix album, so I didn't put them as my top 3. I know a lot of you will have been expecting Brat to be higher. This is just my truth, okay? I'll take this moment to say that this is just my opinion. You don't need to be an asshole in the comments. I understand. I will have a differing opinion to you, and that's the beauty of music, okay? It's totally subjective. If you would like to give me your top 10 albums, or even just top 3 albums, top 5, whatever you want to give me in the comments, I would be happy to read through, and I actually can't wait. That'll be really fun. So, yeah. And if you want a thumbs down the video, go for it. Engagement is engagement, so thank you so much. In at number 8, okay, moving swiftly on. In at number 8, we have For Crying Out Loud by Phineas, the only male you'll see on this list, okay? As you might have seen in previous years, I'm not the biggest fan of male artists. I just don't find them as exciting as female ones. There's a handful of male artists that I do enjoy. Troye Sivan, Phineas, Lauv, Bazzi, you know, a few here and there. It's few and far between, I will say. So Phineas is the only male on the list. His new album, For Crying Out Loud, it's very funky. Okay, very fun. It has a lot of dimension to it. I feel like we have some really like slower, introspective tracks. We have much more chill, funky tracks. We have a few bops. There's a lot of aspects to this album that are quite new for Phineas. Like, I feel like his sound has been kind of like this certain thing, and I feel like in this album specifically, he definitely experimented a little bit more, which I really appreciate. I love it. It's funky. It gets me in a good mood. There's something about his music he never misses for me personally. My top 3/4, once again, I promise I'll try and stick to 3, but you know, it is what it is. I really like What's It Gonna Take to Break Your Heart. Storytelling's really good. 2001, Sweet Cherries. Sweet Cherries is like a long track, but has almost 2 halves to it, which I find very interesting. My other one, because I couldn't not put it on, is Lotus Eater, because that's arguably my favourite song on the album. I have no idea what the title is referring to, Lotus Eater, but I live. Okay, it's the last track on the album, and it's an absolute banger and a half. I fucking love that track. Okay, moving on up, in at number 7, we have What Happened to the Heart by Aurora. Now, Aurora's not such a big artist, but I really, really enjoy her. I will say with Aurora, though, she is a little bit hit and miss when it comes to albums. I'm pretty sure her last album, I didn't really gravitate towards all that much, so I don't find myself listening to that one. However, this one, she grasped me with the singles, and I was there along for the ride for the rest of the album. Now, this is definitely a longer album. We've got definitely longer on this list, but we'll get there. But this is definitely a longer album. A lot of really interesting subjects, a lot of different sounds. Like, once again, she's quite an experimental artist, and this was definitely some of her best work, in my opinion. Oh my god, guys, I'm just thinking of some of the songs. She's a really fun artist. She's very unique. There's not many artists like her, I don't think. Like, you can count on her to kind of do something a little bit out the box, and that's why I like her. My top 3 are Some Type of Skin, which I believe was the last single before we got the album. I could be wrong. And I'm pretty sure this song was definitely written from the perspective of, or like referencing, should I say, the whole Palestinian war and that whole thing that was going on. I love this track. I love what she has to say. And like, obviously not so direct, but you can definitely like read into it in that sort of way. So I really appreciate that. When the Dark Dresses Lightly, first of all, what a title. Incredible track, and as the title suggests, it's kind of darker, a bit more spooky, a bit more ooky, and I Just Live. And then the third one, which is hands down my favourite track on the album, is Starvation. Now, this was the single that came out with the album. The music video is incredible, the dancing sickening. The whole vibe of the visual is sick, and I'm not really a techno-y person. Techno can get a bit bland for me, but the way she kind of fused techno elements with her unique style and like almost this whimsy, I don't know, it's just impeccable work. Like if I had to do a list for songs of the year, that song would definitely be top 3, I'd imagine. It gets me moving, grooving and feeling it every time. I love. In at number 6, we have Eternal Sunshine by the one and only Ariana Grande. Now, once again, this is probably another one where, like, if this list was taking place maybe halfway through the year, this album would probably have been higher on the list, because I do recall when this first came out, I was obsessed, right? Would only ever play this. It's not really diminished in value, but there's just albums that I find myself more excited to listen to over this one currently. That kind of goes without saying with these kind of lists. Like, they all can kind of change and shift given the month, the day, you know, it is what it is. So Eternal Sunshine's in at number 6. I love the story of this album. I like that this is once again a little bit different from other albums, I think. Like, it's definitely a bit more R&B, like true R&B, whereas I feel like we've had kind of like an R&B trap kind of influence before from Ariana. Obviously, we had kind of the red herring, in all honesty, which was obviously Yes And, which was the first single. That was not indicative of the album, in my opinion, at all. It's just everything that I love from Ariana done so impeccably on this album, I think. Even down to like the visuals, it's all very cohesive, very different, very unique for her. Like, I feel like we've not seen her do some of this stuff before. Obviously, like, it kind of makes sense given the whole Wicked of it all. You know, she's definitely in a slightly different era, and I think that's reflected musically into this album. So, yeah, my top 3 are Eternal Sunshine, the title track, True Story, which I do actually think is one that people sleep on a lot, which maddens me because I live. It almost gives, actually now thinking about it, True Story kind of gives something that I could see in like a Chicago musical vibe. Like, it kind of has the whole like, he had it coming, vibe. You know, it's kind of in the same realm. And then last but not least, The Boy Is Mine. That's easily my favorite track on the album. Oh my God. And the visual for this with Penn Badgley, fucking sickening. She makes a great Catwoman. I absolutely live. The Boy Is Mine. Work it, diva. Now next, in at number 5, we have a tie. Okay, I couldn't decide between these 2 albums, mainly because one is newer, so obviously I don't know if it's going to have as much longevity, and the other one is just like a staple. Both are long. Okay, that was also part of it. They're both long albums. They're not an easy listen. We do have The Great Impersonator by Halsey, which is obviously a newer album. It came out more recent. And we have The Tortured Poets Department by Taylor Swift. Now, you might have expected The Tortured Poets Department to be higher, because, as we all know, I am a huge Taylor Swift fan. However, The Tortured Poets Department, the anthology, it's very long. Now, I have famously said to some of my friends that I could definitely take songs from the OG, like the main Tortured Poets Department, and also some songs from the anthology, and maybe create like a nice 15-track solid album, which, if you'd like me to do that in like a podcast episode or something, let me know and I can do that in the new year. Just because I do think, which is not usual for me, I do think the Tortured Poets Department has quite a few filler songs, or I don't necessarily like the word filler, because I feel like that does kind of like diminish the whole meaning of a song, because I do think the songs have their place. It's just so girthy, you know? Like, I feel like we could have maybe had one song encapsulating the story that kind of takes place within 3 songs on the album, for example. You know, like, I think we could have edited it down a little bit more. And I also think the fact that obviously both halves were announced, released same night, that also stressed me out a little bit. Now, I will say I do, which I don't think is popular, but I definitely prefer the first half to the Tortured Poets Department. I find myself listening to that half way more. However, there is some standouts in the second half. In terms of The Great Impersonator, obviously this is the new Halsey album. It is not being given its flowers. In fact, we actually had some Buck Wild reviews happening with some wild claims, which I'm not even going to get into, but if you know, you know. what the hell. Now, if you didn't know, Halsey has been suffering with lupus and amongst other things. Like, it's not just been lupus, but essentially this album is kind of her bringing us in to like the struggle of like literally thinking you're gonna die and like having to come to terms with the fact that you might not have too much longer left.
This entire record has the worst case of main character syndrome I've heard on any pop album in 2024.
Sure, Jan.
And it's kind of laced with almost a thankfulness for still being alive, which is what I think I cling to most. Like, I will hold my hands up and say this album is not for the faint of heart. It's very, very fucking deep. Some of the best writing I've ever come across. Some of the most beautiful songs, but also the most gut-wrenching songs. The Life of a Spider, I'm looking at you, okay? Yikes. On top of that, like I said, I do think it's very easy to see this album at like face value and think, oh my God, it's so sad. How could anyone listen to this casually? And I do think people forget that there definitely is a point to the album which is kind of just like, yes, I've been through it and I'm still going through all of this stuff. And it was shit. It was ugly. It was nasty. It was sad. It was all these terrible emotions that she's obviously put across so beautifully. But there's also an element to it where it's like, but I'm still here. Thank God I'm still here, you know? And it kind of just reminds you that life is fleeting. You never know what could happen. You never know what's around the corner. When I listen to it, it makes me want to live every moment as if it's my last sort of vibe and just be thankful that I'm here. I'm still able to do these things. I'm still able to make memories and whatnot, because obviously we don't know. You never know. And I think that's the beautiful thing that comes with this album. Like I mentioned, it is sad. It is a difficult one to get through, but along with that, there still is some really beautiful moments and really happy, maybe not happy, but more like uplifting moments. Like it's not all heavy in my opinion. So top three, although this is definitely one that I could have picked a lot more because I do love it, and it's also very experimentational. I will say that's one thing about Halsey, is she is not afraid of experimenting with sounds. So yeah, so let's go with The Great Impersonator first. My top three from The Great Impersonator are Ego, which is definitely one of the more like surface level bops that you have on the album. We've then got Lonely as the Muse, which, like I was saying, if I was to do a songs of the year, this would be my number one song of the year currently, because oh my fucking God. And once again, this is very new for me. I'm not into like kind of like screamo or like emo music or punk music or that kind of thing. And funnily enough, Ego definitely is like punk leaning. Lonely as the Muse is some dark shit, some screamo at the end, which is not my typical genre, but she does it incredibly well. Like that song, oh my God. Wow. And also like poetry, okay? So that's definitely my favorite song on the album, and also easily my top song of the year, hands down. And Hurt Feelings. Hurt Feelings is a little bit different to the other two. It's definitely a bit more lighter. Once again, tells a really interesting story about her kind of dynamic with her father and this kind of thing, but the way it's paired with like a softer instrumental and stuff, it's definitely a little bit more palatable than some of the songs on the album. But yeah, definitely give it a listen if you haven't. Give it the time. It's not for everyone, but it's definitely for me. The Tortured Poets department. Now, what I've done is I've done 3 from the main half, and then we've got 3 from the anthology half. Okay? So I'm going to do both because it only felt fair, because we did have 31 songs to go through. So we've got But Daddy I Love Him, obviously. Florida, obviously. And Who's Afraid of Little Old Me. I feel like you guys could have predicted that based on my reaction. I've got to take a lap, guys. I'm so sorry. This one's the one, I think. This one might be one of the ones. Okay, there it is. Now, you guys haven't actually heard me speak about the anthology too much. Here are my top 3 from the anthology. I'm going to Get You Back, So High School, and I Look in People's Windows. I think I Look in People's Windows is another one of those that I think a lot of people are sleeping on. It's haunting, it's unique, it's a bit different for her. I Live. I'm Gonna Get You Back is definitely my favourite off of the anthology half. And probably Who's Afraid of Little Old Me is my favourite off of the first half. So yeah, moving on. Now, in at number 4, now this girly, she always sneaks in for me. And I feel like she's another one. She's a little bit more of an underrated artist because obviously she is more country. I mean, to be honest, she's a country artist through and through. Like, she's not just a little bit country. Like, she is country. Okay? And that is Deeper Well by Casey Musgraves. Okay? Casey Musgraves. She always sneaks in for me. Whenever she has an album, it's always on my list, and I don't, once again, listen to that much country. Casey, I have a special place in my heart for Casey. Okay, I obviously love Golden Hour, love Star-Crossed, and I fucking loved this album. Like, I feel like this is her at some of her strongest. It's a little bit more experimental again. Golden Hour was true country. I feel like Star-Crossed was more pop-leaning, and I feel like this is definitely back to being country, but with more of an experimental twist. When I listen to it, it makes me feel like I'm just like amongst the trees and I'm one with nature and it's all beautiful, you know? That's what I feel. Like when she first brought out Deeper Well, the title track, I had like a whole existential crisis. I think I did a full-on bloody podcast episode talking about that specific track and how it made me feel. So yeah, I love this bitch. I love this album. My top 3, A Cardinal, bit more of a funky opener. We've then got Sway. Now, this is definitely one of the ones where I'm just like, I'm in nature. I am a leaf, and I'm swaying. Okay, the song's literally about her like wanting to be able to like not let things affect her as much and almost allow herself to sway like she's a tree. Like that is literally. I'm generalizing a little bit, but that's kind of the preface of this song. So yeah, and then Anime Eyes. Anime Eyes is so interesting, and I do think it's a polarizing one for most. I love it. I love anime. I love Casey. I love country Casey, and I love that song. Oh, I love Anime Eyes. Top 3. How are we feeling? God. These 3 could really have gone anywhere. I had a hard time with the top. So in at number 3 is Hit Me Hard and Soft by Billie Eilish. Now, once again, when this came out, I would have expected this to be first. It has since grown on me a little bit more. Like, I don't tend to listen to this album fully all the way through as much as I did when it first came out. Like, I was once again rinsing it, but I still do love the album. I love what they did with like the longer tracks that almost take you on a journey within the track rather than doing separate ones. A track can be like 5-6 minutes and it'll like start somewhere, go somewhere in the middle and end somewhere completely different. And I think that's really, really cool. And I do think that was actually emulated in some of Phineas's album, like with Sweet Cherries, for example. That has obviously like the full 2 halves to it, which I feel like was kind of interesting given what work they did on Hit Me Hard and Soft. So yeah, in my opinion, it's probably Billie's best work up like to date. I'm obsessed. My top 3 are Chihiro. I love the anime reference. I love the Spirited Away reference. I fucking love it. The song's incredible. It's definitely my favourite track on the album. We've then got The Greatest. Now, I wasn't sure, like, top 3 wise, I wasn't sure what to put it because this was definitely one that I could have put the whole album. Okay? There's no bad song. The Greatest, for me, it is a standout purely because of the journey and, like, the vocals towards the end. Like, I think for that alone, it deserved its little moment in the sun. So The Greatest. And then I've also got The Diner, which I think is a sleeper hit. Like, I think people generally prefer Lunch, Birds of a Feather, Wildflower. You know, I think they're generally what people gravitate towards more. Whereas I fucking love when Billie does these, like, weirder numbers. Like, she had on her first album, My Strange Addiction. And that was definitely, like, one of my favourites on the album. And The Diner, it feels like the My Strange Addiction of this album. Like, I feel like it's a bit of an outlier, bit of a weird one. People aren't really sure how to take it. Like, people think it's quite creepy, which it is kind of creepy, but I love it. So, yeah, The Diner is my number 3. Second, okay, now this one is a fucking gag because I hadn't even listened to one song from this artist before this year. I'd even say before halfway through this year. Like, it's fucking wild how much of a chokehold and a grasp this album has on me. It's really wild. So in at number 2, we have The Secret of Us by Gracie Abrams, which, like I mentioned, I hadn't heard anything from Gracie Abrams before this. I obviously knew she was kind of close with Taylor and they like worked together and stuff. And like, I know that I'm pretty sure she was an opener for the tour and stuff like that. So I knew of her. I just hadn't listened to any of her music. And she just seemed like a bit too much of a sad girl vibe for me. Whereas this album, it's definitely got some sad girl energy and moments, but it also has its like higher energy. Not, I wouldn't say aggressive, but a bit more frantic. Frantic's the perfect word. It has its like frantic moments. And once again, it's quite experimental. It's different. It's long, which I appreciate. A long album, not too long, but I appreciate a lengthy album. Lyrically and like writing wise, impeccable, flawless job. I knew to kind of expect that though. Like I did think she would be a good songwriter, just given the people that she was like surrounding herself with and working with. So I expected storytelling, and she definitely served that. And I am just shocked at how much I love The Secret of Us by Gracie. I also love the deluxe version. Oh my God, the deluxe version. So yeah, I can't say enough good words about Gracie, to be honest. Now, top three, once again, I could have picked loads. I could have picked fucking loads, but I have given you three. So we've got Risk, mainly because Risk is the first song that I heard from the album, because that was one of the first, if not the first, single. I heard it, I felt instantly obsessed with it, and that really, started my journey with Gracie. And I still love Risk. It's definitely one of the more frantic ones, which I just like it. I don't know why, like it gets me pumped. We've then got Us featuring Taylor Swift, of course. I love the writing. I love Taylor's addition to it. I think it's just the perfect collab. It's just good music, And then we've got That's So True, because I had to include one of the deluxe ones. I do think those 4 songs specifically, they tell their own specific story, which I think is cool. That's So True, definitely my favorite from the deluxe, but I also do love Cool. Yeah. And then, guys, I'm going to do my 2 honourable mentions before we get into the first one. So if you guys want to predict what my first one is, either audibly to yourself or in the comments, by all means, I'll be checking to see if you got them right. The first one, Trouble in Paradise by Chloe. It's a little bit samey, kind of all the way through. Like, I love me a horny girly, but there's just like a lot of songs about being horny. So like thematically, there's not too much going on. Like it's pretty much the same all the way through, but I still really enjoy it. And also, I don't know what it fucking is with the black girlies in specific, but why the fuck are we getting no promotion? Like Chloe is on Beyonce's record label, okay? Why is she getting no promotion? The girlie deserves promotion. Like, this album could have done so much better had she had more promotion. I'm pretty sure they announced it the week of the release. I think we had, like, a couple of singles, but they were, like, soft singles. Like, they weren't, like, fully single moments to themselves. Like, I think one of them only got, like, a visualizer. Like, it didn't get a full-on music video. I don't know, it's just a pity because I feel like some of these artists could be doing incredible stuff and it just doesn't seem like the promotional teams or whatever want to do anything to help it. Like, I feel like it's very rare that you get good promotion these days, and I think that's what Brat did really well, is like she got really good marketing, promotion, all of it. Like, the whole package was so stellar for Brat. And I think some other artists deserve that. And I think a lot of their stuff would do better in, like, a public sense, given that opportunity. Like, Normani and Chloe specifically this year, I think they just deserved better. My other honourable mention is Don't Forget Me by Maggie Rogers. I've just not listened to it that much. I love the album, and I did enjoy it. And when I do listen to it, I do enjoy it. It's just not one that I gravitate towards that often, but it is a really cute, good album, and I just like Maggie Rogers in general. She is one of those artists that's like a phase artist for me. Like, she's kind of similar to Lana Del Rey, and like, I have to be in a certain phase to gravitate towards her music more. So there is that. But Don't Forget Me, it's another good album. I do think I personally prefer Surrender to Don't Forget Me, but that's neither here nor there, okay? But anyway, guys, in at number 1, have we guessed what it is? I'm sure you have, because I've been ranting and raving about this fucking album and artist all year long, and honestly, past that, I've been here for this artist. I've been riding for this artist, and I'm so glad she's finally getting her fucking moment and her flowers. She deserves it. Okay? So in at number 1, we have Short and Sweet. Now, once again, I was unsure. Okay? At the very last minute, I was second guessing myself, but the way I've been obsessed with her this whole year, and once again, I think singles-wise, it's been flawless. The rollout has been flawless. She's getting good promotion. Like, the package, once again, for Short and Sweet, I think has been perfection. And like the brand deals that she's done, perfection. The Netflix special, perfection. Like, I just feel like she's really catching her stride with this whole cutesy, horny, relatable aesthetic. You know, I just like everything about the album. I like everything about Sabrina. I am waiting for the deluxe Sabrina. Okay, I would like the deluxe because I have heard Needless to Say and I've heard Busy Woman. Busy Woman is that bitch. Okay, I would like it on streaming. Thank you very much. But yeah, the album as a whole is pop perfection. Okay, there's sad moments. There's funny moments. I really value funny, witty, catchy music, and she really has provided that this year. Now, some of you might be thinking, like, why is Chapel Roan not on here? Because her album came out last year. Okay, I know I discovered it this year, but this is strictly albums released in 2024, not other years. Some people get confused every year, so yeah, I probably should have said that before, but there we go. The album and the aesthetic, 10 out of 10, 10s across the board. I cannot wait to go to the tour. I've got a really fun idea of my DIY for my outfit, so stay tuned for that. I will be documenting that over on the second channel. And yeah, my top 3 from the album are Taste, that music video with Jenna Ortega, an incredible music video right there. Okay, The Death Becomes Her references, impeccable. Bedchem, that needs a visual, although I am worried that like some of the mumsies and the middle-aged people won't be able to handle that because they love to tell her that she's too horny, even though she never said that she was one for the kids. But anyway, so Bedchem, I would like that to get a music video, please. And thank you. And I'm sure Sabrina would find a way to make it like horny, but like subliminally horny, because she does that so well. Okay, Bedchem is incredible work. And Juno, I'd say Juno and Bedchem are like my top 2 right now. Juno is so fucking fun. I love what they're doing on the tour with Juno and the whole sex positions thing. Oh, it's just so smart. So yeah, guys, that is my top 10 albums of the year for another year. Feel free to tell me how wrong I am in the comments. That's absolutely fine. I might avoid the comments actually on this one because I'm a bit scared. Love yous. And I'll see you tomorrow on the main channel. And if not that, then I'll see you next year. Goodbye. Bye-bye.